To begin our lesson today, we are going to review how to read the music for bell horses. So we already know the history, we know about high and low sounds, and we know some very basic facts about reading music. So the history of our song Bell Horses is that bell horses was a term that was used for horses that pulled carriages with people inside of them. These horses and carriages helped people to get from place to place. And the jingle bells that were around a horse's neck or on their saddle was to show which horse was the leader. It is true that other horses could have the jingle bells on them for sake of decoration, but most of the time the leader of the group of horses would have the jingle bells on them. And we also know that silver bells were used as a prize for winning racehorses instead of your traditional trophy. So that is just the very brief history that we've learned about for bell horses. For our high and low sounds, we started with a line, and that line is what told us where those high and low sounds were going to go. When we started with our line, we know that the high sounds were going to go above the line, and when we were adding in the low sounds, they were going to be below it. And after those high and low sounds were added on the line, we said that those now sounds are going to have an actual name. And those actual names were letters, G and E. G for high and E for low. So we have our line, and just like high and low sounds, G goes above the line for high sounds, and E goes below the line for low sounds. So we have high, low, or G and E. This is just a review. So when we go to read the music for bell horses, we also know now that when we read music left to right like we do a traditional book. So when we read that music left to right, we're reading the notes, the words, we're watching any notation that goes by from left to right. We also know that our music has a title or a name to it. Anytime that you listen to the radio or put in a CD or have your iPod playing, there's always a title to the song. This is the name of the piece that the composer gives it so that you know what to call it. So you have the title. We also have the staff that the music is put on. This is where we put our music notes. The staff has 5 lines and 4 spaces. We also have music notes. Music notes tell us 2 things. The length of the sound, or how many heartbeats it's going to get, and the pitch. Is it going to be a higher pitch? Is it going to be a lower pitch? And how long we're going to hold it. We also have a time signature. The time signature tells us how many beats there are simply going to be. Whether it's 4, 2, or 3, time signature tells us how many there are. We also have this nifty thing called a measure, and a measure groups those beats. It is a group of beats, and what separates each measure is a bar line. So that bar line separates those groups of beats. So what we are going to focus on today is identifying those 2 music notes, G and E, and how to play them. So when we went from high to low sounds, we had a line, and we had high sounds above the line and low sounds below the line. And when we added our notes in, you can see that we could have a high note above and a low note below. When we went from reading music, we're now going from just a line to we are going to look at the staff. So in order to do that, we have to create those spaces in between the lines. And the way that we do that is we start with our line. We have our music notes, and in order to create the space in between it, we have to add more lines. So now we have the blue box that is around the white line. We have a line in the middle, the space above, and the blue line above it as well. We also have the white line, the space in between, the blue line on the bottom. So now we have 3 lines, 1, 2, and 3, and 2 spaces. This note is in a space in between the lines, and that is a high sound in a space. And we have this note that is in between the lines, and that is a low sound in between the lines in a space. So when we have our staff, we know that it has 5 lines. So right now we only have 3 lines. So in order to keep it consistent, we just have to add another box over it. So now we have the 5 lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and the 4 spaces in between. So that is how we made our staff. We took our original line, we added a box around it so that we had those spaces, and then we added one more box, and we ended up with our 5 lines. And that is how you get the staff that has 5 lines and 4 spaces. Now, with high and low on the staff, there's one rule that you need to know. When we have high sounds that are on a line, the low sound will also be on a line. So for example, here is my high sound on a line, and here is my low sound on a line. And it's pretty cool because the same thing goes for spaces. If you have a high sound in a space, the low sound is going to also be in a space, regardless of where you put them on the staff for right now. So when we go to read high and low, we have used the words high and low sounds, and then we labeled them G and E. So now when we look at them on the staff, we have those specific lines that we are labeling them as G and E. So it's not just high and low wherever you want to put it anymore on the staff. It is a specific spot on the staff. So this is what it looks like. G is on the second line of the staff. You can see it as a quarter note, and you can also see it as 2/8 notes. But G is on the second line. This is the most important part of this lesson. G is on the second line. E is on the first line of the staff. We count the staff numbers from the bottom up. So you start at the bottom on 1, second line is 2, and so on and so forth up to 5. So E is on the first or the bottom line of the staff. So E is on the first line. You can see it in quarter notes, and you can also see it in 2/8 notes. So we have now, instead of high and low, it's G and E. Good luck continuing with this lesson, and have fun with the rest of your activities.